15 minutes till the top of the hour, and it's been a week now since jurors cleared George Zimmerman in the murder trial and the death of Trayvon Martin. But the outrage over the verdict, it's far from over. Demonstrations are planned in more than 100 cities across the country, and protesters are demanding the Justice Department file federal civil rights charges against Zimmerman. Now, as part of the federal investigation, Attorney General Eric Holder is taking an unusual step of asking the public to email feedback on whether to file those charges. Joining me now are Vanderbilt University law professor Carol Swain and National Urban League President Mark Morial. Good to have both of you with us for this conversation.
Good to be with you, Victor.
I want to start with you, sir. This is a letter I have in my hand that you sent to Attorney General Holder, signed by yourself, Reverend Sharpton, Ben Jealous of the NAACP. And you write here, and I want to put up on the screen, "We firmly believe that the evidence will point to an egregious violation of the most fundamental of civil rights, the right to life." And my question here is, no mention of race, no mention of profiling. If that is the bar, isn't that pretty low? I mean, anyone who takes another life for any reason then would be open to federal civil rights charges.
Well, you know, the letter wasn't meant to frame the legal arguments that the Justice Department might use in bringing a case, but to point to the fact that Trayvon Martin had every right to be where he was. He was an unarmed teen. He was in the neighborhood where his father lived, where he was staying. He was going to the store to buy Skittles and iced tea, and he was stalked, he was hunted down, and he lost his life. And we think that we've got to point to the fact, continue to point to what happened on that night, because I think when the public understands that, they'll recognize why there's such an outrage that this not only occurred, but that in effect the tables got turned and the aggressor claimed self-defense and in effect was exonerated. Now, today, with the vigils that are going to take place across the nation, we want to focus people on the need to repeal stand your ground laws all across the nation. These laws will return us to a vigilante America that we need to get beyond in the 21st century. We also want to point people's attention to the need to participate in all of the activities around the 50th anniversary of the historic 1963 Civil Rights March. And those activities have taken on a new significance because of the Trayvon Martin case, and also because of the Supreme Court's decision in the recent voting rights case. There's a sense of a need for us to express ourselves, to use our First Amendment rights to the fullest, and to say to the nation, and this say to the nation at this point, that this nation must get beyond this, and that it's important to have a conversation, but it's also important that we think about what action steps we need to take.
Let's talk about these action steps. Professor Swain, what do you think about these protests today, and was justice served in the criminal court?
I think the protests are misguided, and that the letter to the Attorney General and the politics around this takes our nation backwards. One of the problems with the civil rights community, and even with the speech that the president gave yesterday, is that blacks are still using the tactics and strategies of the 1960s, and we do need a racial conversation. There are changes that need to take place in the black communities, and the NAACP and the other race leaders ought to be focusing on jobs and crime and unwed motherhood and abortion. There are a number of issues that are decimating the black community. They're silent on those issues. They have time for gay marriage. They have time for political correctness, but they're not doing anything to serve the needs of the black community or the needs of America as a whole. And as a consequence, we're suffering. We need to move beyond all of this and be constructive. There's lots of opportunity in America. There could be more opportunity. We need jobs. And this is something the president hasn't been focused on. The Black Caucus is not doing enough. In fact, we need to get rid of the NAACP, the Black Caucus, all the race leaders, come together as Americans and solve our problems.
So you think that the NAACP should end? I mean, the organization should...
Yes, I think they've served their purpose. We're not in the 1960s. We don't need these kinds of rallies. We do need conversations that include everyone.
Would that include the Urban League, the group that Mark Morial leads?
I think that the Urban League used to serve a noble purpose, and so the Urban League has a rich history There was a time for the NAACP.
Should it stay
but
or
right
should it go?
now-
I'm going to press you on that. Should
Well,
it
you
stay
know,
or should it
let
go?
me just say
Well,
this.
I
You know,
think-
I'd invite her
wait,
to come down.
wait.
I'd invite her.
This
I'd
is my
invite her
time.
to come down. I would invite her to come down to Philadelphia next week, where the National Urban League's conference is themed
Well,
around
pay
Jobs
my
Rebuild
expenses,
America.
I'll be
I'd
there.
invite her. No, you have enough money. You can afford to come, like everyone
No,
else
I don't-
pays their way.
One at a
I'm
time,
not
please.
race hustler.
One at a time.
So
I'm not
let
a
me
race
say this,
hustler.
because
the profit is
let
on
me-
the
let
side
me
of the
say
race
this.
hustlers. This is about
Professor
a shakedown.
Swain?
Yes, there's going to be a shakedown that follows these rallies, and it will not benefit the black community. And these kinds of efforts hurt race relations. They hurt us. They don't bring us
Let's-
together as
Well,
Americans.
wait a minute. Who should be having
Victor,
this
let me
conversation?
try to turn
then?
this-
Let
All
me
of
just
us
get
should
this
be
question.
part
in.
of the conversation.
But if the
Get rid of political
NAACP
correctness.
goes, Madam, I'm
Let it
not
go.
going to argue
Let
with
it
you,
go.
but I do want to get the question in. If the NAACP goes and the Urban League goes and National Action Network goes, who is going to lead on these conversations? You may not like the characters,
Not the
but
race
should these
hustlers.
race hustlers? Okay, that's your term. I'm going to leave that up to you, Mr. Morial, and what your thoughts are on that.
Well, look, the professor has joined the reactionary forces in America, and that's truly unfortunate because
I'm an American. I
the
believe
work
Please
that
let him
all of
finish,
us-
madam. Let him
United.
finish. We're doing this one at a time. Go ahead, sir.
the work that we all do today and what we're focusing on here now is not only the importance of a conversation, but the importance of Americans expressing themselves in the traditions of the First Amendment, in the traditions of the Civil Rights Movement. The right to assemble, the right to express ourselves is a time-honored tradition in this nation. It's not a tactic of the past. It's a tactic of the past, the present, and indeed the future. So we want to focus people on the need to repeal stand your ground legislation. We want to focus people on the need to have a great showing of support on August 24th in Washington, D.C. And we do want to focus people on all of the underlying important issues. That's why in Philadelphia next week, when the Urban League Conference takes place, we'll be talking about jobs, we'll be talking about education, health care, and voting rights. It'll be a rich conversation. It'll be a multicultural conversation. It's the kind of conversation that we encourage people to participate in all across the nation. But we're not going to be distracted by those who want to attack us as opposed to dealing with the issue. We've got a dead teenager. We've got grieving parents. We've got a nation that needs to be brought together. And we're going to
agree.
participate in that, and that's what this is all about.
Well, Carol Swain, Mark Morial, lively conversation.
Thank
Hopefully
you.
the conversation continues. Thank you very much.